What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new podcast. I am one of your hosts, Nick Blaine, aka Shockin' McPain. With me is my regular co-host, Sam Woods, Captain Woodsy himself. How are you today, Sam?
I am good, my friend. I'm good. How are you?
Good. I think we discussed this before the podcast. I think we both kind of are living in a hot time right now in terms of just being overwhelmed with sweat. So it's a combined, just sort of thing right now. It's great segues, sweaty men, whatever. But we're going to get to what the co-op stop is. The co-op stop is a place where Sam and I, and occasionally guests bi-weekly, the second week, we get together. We talk about what we're playing. We talk about the games industry itself, and we talk about fun times with the games we've been playing. But first, I want to start it off with what we've been playing. Sam, would you like to take it off?
Let's do it.
Take it off is a weird phrase. I'm going to say take it away. Take it away. We're going to redo that.
Let's do it.
There we go.
So, I have been playing the game. Game on everybody's lips.
Yep. I too have been playing the game.
I've beat the game. I very much enjoyed the game. Game made me feel things that the game has not made me feel ever, I think. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I just beat the Pokemon DLC, which was good.
Good. You said good with a tinge. What is the good? Good.
It was fine. It was short. It was cool to see some of my favourite Pokemon in the game now.
Mm-hmm.
You've got my boy Heracross and my boy Magnezone in the game now. I don't think the story was particularly great. It was over within a few hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. Yeah, it was fine. And I'm now playing one of my favourite games of all time, Super Mario, the 1,000-Year Door.
Ooh.
Anticipation for the Origami King, which is out in a couple of weeks.
See, the 1,000-Year Door is the only one I actually ended up playing. I really enjoy that style, and especially there's a few games that have kind of aped that style, like South Park, and most recently it's Bug Fables. Is kind of like in aping that style, and kind of you see the nostalgia for it. Are you at all nervous with how the combat has been brought up with Origami King?
Yeah, I'm more nervous now than I was a couple of weeks ago, because slowly bits and pieces have been trickling out that have made me kind of wonder. Because initially it looked like, you know what we want. Everybody wants it to go back to the 1,000-Year Door style, the turn-based combat, the party system, all of that good stuff. However, slowly they've revealed that it's this turntable that you're battling on, and it's more of an open world rather than chapter-based kind of story, which the last one was. So I'm nervous, but I'm still excited.
See, I think there's a staple for like RPGs for me, and that's the towns. And so far, from what I've seen of the towns, they are grade A quality. The thing that's gonna really make or break it for me, as if I would even try to go through it if I don't like the combat, is the characters themselves, the characterizations. Are we going to get these very unique characters that we get in a Paper Mario game like 1,000-Year Door, or are we more getting something like a Super Paper Mario or God forbid Sticker Star? Like, So
The
it's a few apprehensions that I have.
Yeah, the bosses kind of scare me. I've
Mm-hmm.
not watched this big 5 minute video that was released a week or two ago, simply because it looked of spoilers. But what I did see was a lot of the bosses are stationary,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I'm not sure how down I am for that. Like, one thing about the Thousand Year Door was that it had really interesting bosses. A dragon, a ghost, a pirate lord, um, had all sorts of cool bosses. Now resigned to fighting like a stapler and
Mm-hmm.
ruler, kind of like get what you're going for with the
Yeah.
paper, but don't know. Come on, Nintendo,
I
out
like
the
the
bag.
idea of it, honestly. I'm not sure if will like the execution. Especially, I'm also not a, Paper Mario person. Like, I've never been, like, super devout in the games. I've literally only played Thousand Year Door, which everyone louts as the best one. Um, but I do think that there is something to say that there is lacking a Paper Mario. Or, I mean, the thing is, I would love to see also eventually, if this does well, we get another Mario and Luigi game. Unfortunately, we did lose I think it's Team Alpha, Studio Alpha or Team Alpha, who made those games last year. So unfortunately, I also feel like there's going to be a lot of charm if we ever go back to another, RPG of that form.
But yeah, I think one thing that you're guaranteed with a Paper Mario game is charm.
Yeah.
Um, Even Sticker Star, which was a bad game, had that Paper Mario charm.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're going to get that from Paper Mario. In terms of Mario and Luigi, again, another game full of charm, but I can't see that happening for a little while.
You need the right team, I think, behind it and all that. Have you been playing anything else that we would like to talk about?
Um, and that's probably they're the three games I've kind of played over the past month.
Okay,
So
well, I would like to
still
jump.
streaming a bit of Pokemon.
I would like to
Go for it.
jump into the game itself. Spoiler-free discussions. Obviously, so we will be doing a spoiler cast within the next couple of weeks on it. So if you're looking for a spoiler impressions, stay on this channel, keep it locked, and we'll be able to post that for you and give our impressions of the game. But surface level, what did you really think of the game besides you liked it?
Um,
Do you have any like additional
I
thoughts?
I'm not sure where the criticism have come from. I thought the story was really strong
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. Um, I think they tightened up the gameplay perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it felt so smooth to play.
That's the one thing is I
First
think
one,
the gameplay was very good. I think it was the best Naughty Dog gameplay to date.
yeah,
Because I get a
I
lot of
can
people's
get behind that.
frustration with Naughty Dog games where it is like, the cover-based shooter, it kind of all feels similar, but I feel like they really upped it to a level where they kind of outclass themselves, where there's a every little thing you do is reactionary. Every little thing you do in a camp or a hideout is reactionary. You have to, especially if you're going stealth, you have to keep on your toes. You can't just be like, oh, I can trick the AI like this, which I'm sure there's spots where you can, but it's much harder in this game. The AI is smart. I think not really a spoiler, but something that I really like about the gameplay is it even packs story into the gameplay, where you get the little bits of, when you kill one of the enemies in the game, you'll hear oh, they got Ryan, or oh, they got Steve, like they you feel like, oh, these are not just like enemies I'm killing. These are people that mean something to somebody else. and that was, I think that fit so well with the overall narrative that Naughty Dog was trying to tell. There is a lot of things that, especially going over a few spoiler casts in the past week or so, there is a few things that I can see what people are saying where the story, just the way it was told necessarily, I get the criticisms there. I personally am a similar boat with you, where I'm just like, I really liked it. I think overall it was very good. I have back and forth on whether or not I liked it more than the first one. I do think that I said it on another podcast, but the I think the open spots are almost a little bit too open, whereas I really like the drawn in nature of The Last of Us Part 1, where you could still like scavenge, but you're not going around aimlessly. And I think that there was some stuff there, but I think at the same point, I think that there was some visual storytelling that was very powerful, even around the world. But again, no spoilers. I really enjoyed it. Woodsy, it sounds like you really enjoyed it.
I think I come down on the side of I definitely enjoyed it more than the first.
Yeah.
And to your point, listening to spoiler casts, I've not listened to any.
Mm-hmm.
I've not maybe had that critical perspective of people saying, this happened, made me think this,
Mm-hmm.
would then make me personally go, okay, yeah, like build a wider picture of it all. Right now, I'm just going kind of off my personal experience, my memories of it, and I think the story was fine. I agree with what you say about the open worlds, the open world sections. There was parts of it did drag out a little bit. Part of it was my own fault. I was playing it with my girlfriend who's not a video game person.
Right.
So I was trying to keep her entertained when it got to the open world parts where there's not a lot going on.
Right.
Kind of rushed through them a little bit, but that's not a critique on the game. That's absolutely how I was playing it myself.
Yeah, I think that I not to disparage the open world more. I don't know when I say open world, more openness of the game. I just think that the way they're trying to convey this story and the story of the overall Last of Us narrative, I think it's way more conducive to something that's a little bit more closed in than that lets you disperse, because a lot of times there's quite a few parts where, like reading the collectibles and all that, where I was getting the bigger picture of the narrative. I think when that happened, it was cool. It was like going into like different shops, or different buildings in general. There was just minor story beats that were really cool that you wouldn't have, seen otherwise. And it doesn't affect the narrative at all. It just expands the narrative. However, I felt like a lot of the sidetracking was more in favor of getting resources than it was letting on the story, and I think that was where I felt that it was a little bit obtuse when it came to being an open world. But I did like it from a gameplay style, in terms of, my Ubisoft head, where I'm just like, I'm gonna clear this hideout out, and I'm gonna clear this out, that sort of thing. But I think as a narrative and as a person who enjoys narrative, I think it didn't lend to help the narrative itself overall, I guess.
I agree. I think what Naughty Dog do, and particularly like the two Last of Us games, is that additional storytelling with the kind of the notes hidden around. Some of those just add so much to the story as you piece together what happened. Why is there 3 infected locked in a garage?
Right.
Reading the notes, and you figure out, okay, this is why they're in there. Stuff like that, I think, is why I loved the first game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was the more powerful. Special. Yeah, I think that was the more powerful parts of the open world when you did have that. But if is there anything else you would like to say on Last of Us Part 2 before we head off? Because not head off, but head to the next thing. Because that's basically all I've been playing. I'm very busy. I kind of have been playing, obviously, Extreme Wise. I've been playing Warzone, some Animal Crossing. I delved back into Dragon Ball Z Kakarot for a second. I enjoy that game because I'm a Dragon Ball Z person. But it's just like also, that's whatever. But if you don't have anything else to say about The Last of Us, we will go into our top 3 news stories of the week. But segue to Last of Us Part 2 smashes sales records, sells 4 million copies in the first 3 days, also becomes the fastest selling first party title in Japan. Now, Woodsy, how do you feel about this? Do you think that this could be one of the best selling games on PlayStation 4?
It's going to have some competition because obviously GTA sells a bucket load.
Right.
Call of Duty is guaranteed to hit a market that Last of Us wouldn't hit. And same with the sports titles. So for over here, sells just kind of multiple times more than what other games do. If you were to strip your Call of Duties, your sports titles, and your GTAs out of it, yeah, Last of Us is going to be one of the best-selling games of the generation, at least kind of single-platform first-party games. Am I surprised about this? It's got a similar effect as what kind of Animal Crossing had. People are still at home looking for something to consume. People loved the first Last of Us. This has been 7 years in the waiting, so I'm not surprised that it's kind of going out as much as it has.
Right. And I think that it's really surprising because it's like when a rated R movie comes out and it does gangbusters, like something like Deadpool, where there is such a minute group of people who can see The Last of Us or will even enjoy The Last of Us because of its more like hardened narrative, like it's more like it's a lot to deal with, you know what I mean? Like it's hard M rating, like it's mature themes throughout, and I think that it's really interesting to see the fact that it was able to sell 4 million copies in the first 3 days with it being such heavy material. And I think that's the bigger statement. I'm pretty sure as far as exclusives goes, it's either Spider-Man, which makes sense, or Uncharted 4, I think is like the number one exclusive, at least selling wise. But yeah, I think that it says a whole lot that it can sell this fast, and it being such a heavy game to deal with. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there are certain things that that it shows the quality of Naughty Dog and the trust in Naughty Dog itself, from the general audience, basically.
I was just checking up. You're correct. So,
yes,
as I can see, Uncharted 4, and then Spider-Man are the current champions. But in third place by God of War.
Yeah, and I think it's also, honestly, it's the power of the PlayStation exclusive, because there's a pedigree known with the PlayStation exclusives. There's a certain degree of even something like a Days Gone, where you had this game that wasn't loved by all, but the people who liked it loved it. And I think that that's another thing. I think that even the worst exclusives on the list still have quite the following, and they have quite the pedigree. And Sony at this point, 20 plus years of, actually I think it's more like almost 25 plus years of of kind of serving this crowd has kind of got a formula down that has rang through, and people will buy the exclusive regardless of the content because they know that they're going to get something of quality. It's like the Nintendo seal of approval, previously. I think that's another reason why it's selling so much, is because you do have someone like a Naughty Dog behind this game and somebody like Sony publishing the game.
Like I say, you're surprised because of the content. I'm not. It's,
Yeah.
like I say, one of the biggest games. The first one was one of the most well-loved, most talked about games, say, of the last 10 years. It's no surprise to me that this is done well. Plus the kind of barrier to entry in the cinema, if it's an M-rated 18+ movie, go to the cinema, you have to be 18.
Right. Whereas with games, you can kind of
can just download it.
Yeah, exactly. That's fair too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that this is another telling sign for PlayStation going into PlayStation 5, where we're going to see these things get ramped up. Something like a Spider-Man Miles Morales coming out in PlayStation 5 is going to sell units. It sounds like, it looks like, because it is such a, not only Spider-Man the property, already well loved, and then PlayStation, already a well-loved brand. I think that they're literally anything they do. I think that's also part, and I mean, I guess not, because they're not exclusive necessarily, but Bugsnax takes such, because it was revealed at PlayStation, I think that people have like, oh wow, look, this is great, and have kind of had a nice run with it. But if you don't have anything else to say about that, Woodsy, let's move on to Animal Crossing summer updates confirmed. A video on Nintendo's official Animal Crossing Twitter account confirmed July 3rd swimming and diving, new underwater creatures for the museum, Pascal the otter who trades scallops for DIY recipes, and Gulliver will be wearing a pirate outfit. And we're getting all this for summer. A great time in Animal Crossing, a horrible time for the world in terms of being hot and just horribleness. The summer update 2 is then confirmed for early August. No further information was reported on. How does this make you feel, Sam?
I've been slacking. My villagers probably hate me. There's probably weeds everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if, when I turn it back on, they've burnt my house down, because it's been so long since I was last on there. I think it's been somebody who hardcore played it every day for the first 2 months, 2.5 months, kind of fell off it, but this is going to be what gets me back in. We're now in July, so there's new fish, new bugs already. You've got the swimming and the diving, which is cool. I'm a bit of like a love a collectathon, so things for me to collect in terms of like underwater critters. Awesome. No idea what the whole Gulliver situation is, why he's wearing a pirate outfit.
I'm here for it.
I'm down to pirate. Yeah, I'm gonna jump back in. This will be what pulls me back in.
And like, looking at that video, it's super interesting because it's like something. I mean, I guess I've also only played Animal Crossing proper, the first one. But I mean, besides Animal Crossing New Horizons as well, because I've like actually devoted time in New Horizons and Animal Crossing GCN. But I do think that this is like a new venture for Animal Crossing from what all I've seen. I think something like these events are going to keep people coming back. I mean, this month I think it was the wedding event, the photos event, and then you can turn that in for some the tokens that you get from that, or they're like heart pieces, I think, in for furniture and more stuff like that. It's so funny every time I go into a Monday stream and I'm just like, oh, there's weeds over here. You don't see these weeds. You don't see these weeds. And then the villagers are like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while." I'm like, "Shut up, shut up, shut up!" Like don't make me look like a bad villager, like. But I think that these Nintendo keep supporting Animal Crossing in a way that I think will keep all of us coming back for something. That will have the dangling piece of fruit ahead of us, especially for the collectathon people, such as I'm sure myself and you. But like we have to get every fish, every scallop. We have to try to track down what we can for each season and try to get as much as we can, as well as probably some new items to build up our house with. All I'm asking though, please Animal Crossing, please Nintendo, put in a multi-select thing. Just let me select multiples of things to drag out and then drag back in, so I don't have to be like, oh, I need you out, or multi-craft. Like I'm not even asking for a multiplayer, a better multiplayer, because it's like, I get it, probably down the road we're gonna get there, it's gonna be fine. But man, Nintendo, we're so close to having the perfect Animal Crossing game.
It's wonderful that we are getting this kind of games as a service model for Animal Crossing. Like, it's fantastic. Damn, there are still some things in there, some things missing that should have been there day one. Fix them.
It wouldn't be Nintendo without it being so close to perfect. Like it feels like the last few releases from Nintendo have been like, oh, this is an amazing game, but like, if you could do this, and there are things that are not like, oh, I get why you didn't do that, it's just like baffling things, like, why didn't you make this multiplayer a little bit like more fleshed out, or why don't you let people like join the island all at once in a group or something, or even like let them collect resources. I kind of get that, I suppose, but some of the stuff that they put out there is kind of baffling to me, so I'm like, like, Nintendo, you could be a little bit better about this. But then we're gonna get into something that I personally love and I'm ready for. Cyberpunk Night City Wire reveals new Cyberpunk 2077 details. Some key things to come out of this event: the anime produced and I believe drawn by, I don't know how that works in anime, but coming 2022, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, produced by One Trigger Animation Studio, who produced some classics such as Gurren Lagann. And if you don't think that I'm gonna love this anime when it comes out, you got another thing coming. Also, we have the new Badlands area. Looks like something straight out of Mad Max. I'm just gonna say it right there. Like, it looks super like, let's go, fire guitar sort of thing. The tons of customization options. I also I saw on Twitter something that was retweeted. Like, there's different, like, not as necessarily like classes. I don't know if this falls under the classes, but you can be a corporate person, so you can just be like, what's his name from Blade Runner? I can't remember. Anyways, you could be like one of the suits from Blade Runner. So that's pretty cool. I just want to live out my Blade Runner fantasies in Cyberpunk, honestly. But Kotaku states
3 classes.
Yeah.
And there's corporate, there's the street, it's style, and there's one more, which I will get back to you with.
Got you. I would say here it states, Kotaku says there are 6 skin types, 35 hair colors, 17 eyes, 17 mouths, 17 jaws, 17 ears, 8 bits of cyberware, 9 scars, 6 tattoos, 11 piercings, 5 teeth types, 13 makeup types, 3 blemishes, 3 nipple types, 2 dick types, 1 vagina type, and various dick size options, and 5 pubic hair options. Has there ever been any much more weirder of a customization options than, like, oh, these are blemish types? Like, that's how we're close we're getting with stuff. Like, are we just creating another spore here where we're just gonna have like dick people? Like eventually there's gonna be some mods. Of
Yeah,
course,
shit's crazy.
in line with a lot of other things coming out soon. The PS5 and Xbox Series X upgrades will be free upon its launch, their launch, I guess. And then a new brain dancing mechanic was teased. Lets you see memories, fast forward, rewind, slow down, etc. Much like the Batman Arkham series does with their kind of flashbacks. What did you think of this Cyberpunk, this Night City? It's the first episode of the Night City where, what did you think of it?
So, don't think it was formatted great. I am so damn excited for this game that they could have given me anything, and I'd have been like, yeah,
Right.
Cyberpunk. I think they focused too much on the brain dancing stuff.
Yeah, it
I
did kind of
don't
slow
think I'm
down.
alone in that. Just the footage they showed off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so pumped for this game. The kind of neon, the cyberpunk aesthetic is just so damn cool. Um, I'm looking forward to just exploring that world
I agree.
and in many hours,
And,
in not a lot.
and it definitely looks like CD Projekt Red has really found their footing in the past couple. I mean, obviously the past couple of years with things like The Witcher 3, which had the mass appeal, rather than Witcher 2 and The Witcher, which were kind of niche games. On top of having The Witcher show, I don't know how hands-on they are about that. I don't think they are, because it's more based on the books. But having that popularity and getting their name out there, in some variation, I do think that Cyberpunk looks like a whole new level with them, kind of equating it to something like Larian Studios right now, going from Divinity to Baldur's Gate proper. Like Baldur's Gate 3, and tackling that D&D centric, that actual property itself. I think that's kind of what Cyberpunk is doing right now. And CD Projekt Red itself is doing right now, and kind of it looks like this world's going to be super fleshed out and super amazing for us. Oh, and fortunately too, I did see that it was delayed to November 19th. So that was another thing that was kind of a bummer, but at the same time, we're waiting for it. It's fine. We can all wait. I think we can all agree waiting for the game is going to be better than just letting the game come out and be not great. Not that it wouldn't be. It looks pretty polished, but also it's a slice. So
Full hats time. November 19th is a Thursday, which is a weird a weird day for a game to come out.
Right.
We get in the Series X on the 19th.
See, I'm
the
torn.
marketing's tied.
I'm torn, honestly, because it sounds like it's possible, because they have talked about it kind of being around holiday, and I think that would be the best point just before, your Thanksgiving or, whatever sort of holiday, your Black Friday shopping. And that's kind of what they would want to target. However, it sounds like the port itself is not going to be ready upon launch of the actual game, from what I understand. Unless that's the reason that they're delaying it, is maybe because they do have they want to do a simultaneous launch on PS4 and PS5, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, to kind of have everything.
The marketing tied with Xbox. I believe, yeah, it is because of E3 last year with Keanu. So
Yeah.
I'm not so sure it indicates anything about PlayStation, but
Yeah.
quickly looking, the original Xbox was released on November 15th.
Mm-hmm.
The Xbox One was released November 22nd, and the Xbox 360 was released November 22nd. So terms of that window that Microsoft like to hit, puzzled right
Yeah.
right in the middle of where their kind of previous consoles have come out. So I don't know. It's
And I think
intriguing.
it also is up in the air with things like what's going on now. Obviously we're all locked up in our homes, with COVID going around. Unfortunately, I do think that there's probably going to be a second wave. So, are we going to see the manufacturing go down? Are we going to even see these games come out this year because production can't continue? Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where we'll see. Like I think that there is also the possibility of it not necessarily like coming out around that time, because, or at least having a stunted production, because obviously there are parts of the world that are better than the others. There's parts of the world that are still unfortunately dealing with all this and trying to be better, and it's not everybody's joining in. We're gonna say that. I'm not to make this any sort of political thing, but yeah, I just think that that's going to affect the output of the console, and that sort of thing. But I think we're all done talking about Cyberpunk for now. But to the topic of the bye week. 2020 halfway through in review. What have you thought of this year so far? Overall thoughts before we get into the games themselves, the top games.
So, review of 2020 is it's been the shittest year of time. My review of 2020 in gaming is so far all time in my life.
Yeah.
2020 in gaming, good. There's been some bangers in there. We've got some awesome stuff to come, and I think it's definitely going to go down as one of the best years of all time.
Yeah.
Again, at the moment we've had some really good stuff, but a lot of this stuff that was due out in this first half of the year,
it had to get pushed. Yeah.
I think we've still got Ghosts, we've still got Avengers, we've still got Cyberpunk on the new consoles, we've got Spider-Man,
right?
So it's still a long way to go.
Yeah, I think I somewhat agree with you. I don't know if I agree with the one of the worst years of all time, because I think that even with the lack of overall games, I think that we have got the games that we have got have been very good, which kind of outweighs
the worst year of all time, ignoring gaming.
Oh, okay, got you. I was gonna say in games, yeah, no, definitely. It's funny, like the meme of the, all right, it's July, what's the next thing? Like murder hornets. Oh, like that murder hornets have returned and they're doubling. Like the plague is happening as we speak. But yeah, so I think that overall, like you said, I think that the world itself not been a great year. But I do think we've gotten like starting out with this year, I think we've gotten a lot of starting out the year with we had such a stack of games, and I almost am glad we're seeing the push, because there was so much, on top of it, that I think that there would be a lot of games that would cannibalize each other, and I think it's also given some people a lot to go into their backlog. Not to make a bad thing look like a good thing, but I think that there has been some good that to come out of the lack of games, and especially with this past decade of games where it's just like banger after banger after banger. I think that people have gotten the time to go back to things like God of War, like the original Last of Us, now, especially with the second one out now. Can I go back to the things they missed? Overall, I think that the year so far has been good. It's been very good. I don't think that anything has really come out in supremely disappointed. The only thing that's even close to that I would think, from my end at least, is SpongeBob Rehydrated, because I did kind of like those games as a kid. So to see that not do as well and kind of just keep the generic PS2 feel was kind of a bummer. But honestly, like other than that, I think we've had a pretty stellar year, and I think even games that I thought were going to be sort of subpar have come out and been very good. But let's start with January. We have Kentucky Route Zero at an 87 on Metacritic as of time recording, and Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore at an 81%. I am so glad we finally got Tokyo Mirage Sessions on Switch. That's all I'm gonna say. So I can finally just play through it. I did have it on the Wii U, but obviously it kind of came out the tail end of the Wii U. I still have to go back and play it, honestly. Sorry, Cam. I will get around to it. I swear. I will not disappoint you. But yeah, I think that I've heard a lot of great things about Kentucky Route Zero. The year that it finally released, after years and years and years of just being episodes, I kind of have delved into what it is, and I do like that sort of gameplay style. So that might be something up my alley. Do you have any thoughts on January for this year?
I have Tokyo Mirage Sessions backlog sat on my shelf with my Switch games, and it's wrapping. I don't know. I know it's a good game. I know I will like it. But nothing's pulling me to it, and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I will get around to it, but
it's the thing of Persona was such a game for me at the time. Persona 4 at that time, because going into Persona 5, I started playing it with on the Wii U, and obviously the Wii U didn't stick around, and now we have Persona 5, and even this year we have coming up later, we have Persona 5 Royal, which I think I've kind of like my niche has kind of been met. I think the idle mechanic or the idle story doesn't really grip me as much as I would think it would, but I think it's also a combination of that and the fact that when a JRPG doesn't really have a story that I want to love or like love immediately, it's hard for me to continue on with it. But I think there is like seeing the as far as I've gotten, seeing where it goes, I think there is some really cool things, and I think that could be comparable to a Persona game. And I do want to give it a shot because give it another shot because I have had so many people, such as Cam Hawkins, talk to me about it and be like, "Hey, man, this is why you need to play it. This is why you need to finish it." Like, so, yeah, I was really cool. Like the beginning of the year. I don't know if it was the beginning of the year or late last year, but when the direct happened for it, I was ecstatic because I'm like, oh, I get to replay this game, and like here we are in now July actually, and just like I just haven't really touched it that much. So, any fan of Kentucky Route Zero at all in you, Sam?
I've not seen All My Sins enough of it. I've heard great things in terms of actually sitting down and watching any of the gameplay or reading anything about it. Kind of one that's
kind of right over your head. I think that's a lot of people too. I think that there's been a lot said about it in the rumblings, and I think that there has been many of people who have had that same sentiment. Like I literally did not know what the game was until this year, like when it finally was all released. So, and I've seen it go on sale on the eShop a couple of times. I thought about picking it up because it'd be a nice Switch game. Going on to February, we have Dreams being the big one. February, we almost had Last of Us Part 2, but of course the delay happened and we did not have it there. But what are your thoughts on Dreams, Sam?
It's a shame for me.
Yeah.
Again, I'm guilty. I own Dreams. I've never played it.
Mm-hmm.
Another one in the infamous backlog. But Dreams came out at a time when I was still store manager of a game store over here in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
game, at least in the two stores that I was kind of managing, didn't sell well.
Hmm.
Um, whether it was a marketing thing, whether it just didn't have that broad appeal,
I feel like
don't know.
people don't understand what it really is either. I think that people just see, oh, this is like a creation platform. I think that people only see that and they're turned off by it because they're like, I like to play. I like to play video games, and I think that I personally don't own Dreams, but from what I've played with the demo, I think that it has so much potential. And on top of having the demo, seeing what people have even come up with, like full games, I think in the long run, I think as a game, unfortunately, it has failed in terms of not critically but commercially. But I think as a tool that could be akin to an RPG maker in the future, I think that it's got like supreme potential, and I'm glad that Media Molecule was able to pull it all together and make something that's really special, even though it's not unfortunately commercial, like I'm sure PlayStation would want it to be. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that unfortunately, like even if I had the game, I wouldn't necessarily check it out or check it out past like the first week of owning it. And I hope people continue to create on it because it does seem like a very promising platform, rather than a game. I feel like if they released it more as like the platform, be like, here you are, and you can play all these games. I feel like if that was marketed that way, it would have kind of sold a little bit more. But I'm also not a marketing person, so we're gonna move on to March, where we have the previously talked about Persona 5 Royal, another game that I've neglected. Second favorite game of all time, Persona 5. I've neglected to actually play through Royal. I've had Royal for months now, and I just haven't had the time to want to invest into it. I don't know if it's like just JRPG bugs that I have in me that I don't want to play JRPGs right now, especially with it being one of my favorite games of all time. At least the first one, the non-royal version, being one of my favorite games of all time. But I was looking for another excuse, and I see it popping up from time to time on my PS4 feed. So, and I know, Sam, you enjoy Persona 5 as well. So, what are your thoughts?
Persona 5 Royal is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Everything they added to that game, everything they tweaked in Royal, just made it as near to perfect as you could. New songs, fantastic. New less phenomenal. New characters, brilliant. Yeah, I can't praise it enough. I just want to go out and listen to the music and play lots of Persona shit.
Is there like top three at the very least, even if it's not your favorite game, like it's just like top three soundtracks of all time in gaming? Like it's phenomenal. Like for me, like with like video games, it goes Kingdom Hearts 2, Persona 5 soundtrack, Celeste soundtrack. Like that's my top three, I would say. But yeah, I think Royal, at least again, like the additions, like you said, the additions that it adds are so minor yet super interesting, and it keeps you having a new perspective on the whole thing, as well as the new character, and new variations on some boss fights I've seen. I'm really excited to get to the end, closer to the end, where the actual new content is. Like I've heard it's like 20 hours of new content, but it sounds like from the people I've talked to, it's substantial and it's very cool way to pull it into the story and pull it all together. And then one that I don't really have an opinion on because I've never really been a Half-Life person, but Half-Life Alyx released with a 93 on Metacritic. VR title that totally passed me by because I'm not a Half-Life person.
Me too. I'm not a Half-Life person. I'm not a VR person. VR makes me feel a bit queasy. It's one that we probably don't need to spend too much time on, but those who have played it have said it's groundbreaking.
Right.
It's going to set the path for what VR can be.
I'm willing to try it out at some point. Like I've never been a huge Half-Life person, but I'm definitely willing to try it out with the praise that I hear about it. And then, of course, something that is near and dear to my heart, as I have been streaming it every Wednesday over at twitch.tv/ShotgunMcPain, Call of Duty Warzone. What a wonderful take on the Battle Royale family. It doesn't do a whole lot different besides take it and be Call of Duty AF, and as well as something like the Gulag being added, I think is such a great touch. And I think it's really brought, it's a great thing to jump in with some people and just hang out and have a fun time. Sam, where do you land on Call of Duty Warzone?
I've dabbled. We've dabbled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've stayed together. I think it's a fantastic take on the kind of battle royale genre. It takes it, it tweaks it a little bit, and it does it really well. For me, it's not a game that I'm going to sit and play every single day. If I've got half an hour spare and not a lot to do, then I will jump in and just mess around, and it's great for that.
Right. And we sort of talked about it before, but yeah, Call of Duty Warzone, I think like that the thing that they add with the Gulag is such a minor thing where it just keeps you going. The formula itself, I think, keeps you going and wanting more when you get done with it, even if you're playing solo. I think also it's a way for people to get in to the Modern Warfare scene, because I obviously was not a huge fan of Modern Warfare before. I mean, like, I was a huge fan of the previous Modern Warfares, but I remember jumping into the beta for Modern Warfare. I'm like, nope, I'm gonna get my ass handed to me. Like, I don't really want to play the. The campaign looked promising, and it still looks promising, and eventually I'll buy it. But I think that do we see, now that we have Warzone, do you see next or this coming year us getting an updated one like we did with Blackout to Warzone? I don't either. I hope not, honestly.
Run with Warzone now.
I hope they keep Warzone the way it is. I hope they don't add another one on, honestly.
It's a waste of time, a waste of development.
It's a waste of gigabytes, because that game is like 700 gigabytes at this point. But another game that we've talked about previously, and we'll spend just a little bit of time on because we have talked about our love for it, Animal Crossing New Horizons, at a 90% on Metacritic. Man, it's a shame that it's that low. It honestly should be 95. It is amazing. I keep coming back to it. Even like you said, like, I have neglected my island a little bit here's and there's, but I think it's such a game where you can get enveloped in, and especially with the characters on top of making your own island and kind of making your place feel home. Sam, do you have anything else to say about Animal Crossing?
I mean, I don't think there was a review written where this wasn't said, but it was the right game at the right time.
Yeah, it was absolutely.
It kind of dropped just as countries started locking down.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody got on board. It sold billions of copies, and everyone was just having a damn good time, including myself, who's owned and played every single Animal Crossing mainline game to date. Love them all. Love this one.
Yeah, I honestly, like I said before, I think this is the closest to a perfect Animal Crossing game that we've had. I think with the advent of things like having games as a service, I think that it's taking the advantage of that and taking into account what people are saying online and trying to make a better game. Nintendo is, and I am all here for it, man. And then we also have Ori and the Will of the Wisps at a 90% on Metacritic. Another game that I wanted to get around to because I do love that Metroidvania style, and I love Ori is one of my favorite Xbox One exclusives of this generation, alongside Sunset Overdrive, but I just never got around to it, along with the next game we're gonna mention. But yeah, I think that Ori is something special that I just never got around to. The second one, anyways.
Same here. I love Metroidvanias. Hollow Knight is one of my favorite games, um, but I've just kind of neglected Ori. But it's doing well. It's kind of it hit what 2 million players
Yeah.
um,
So,
confirmed about a week ago, which is nice numbers for a game like that.
right. And I think with me, I think if it would have came out around the time that it was announced, or at least a little bit for, I think it had such a long tail that I kind of forgot about Ori as a property, and I think that it did a disservice to it almost by coming out
It was
so much
5 years
later. Yeah, which is
between
fine.
the
Like
two
it
of
sounds
them.
like it did fine for it, just in terms of critically, and commercially. It sounds like, um, but yeah. So Ori I will get around to that at some point, as well as our next one, the big one, Doom Eternal, at a 90% on Metacritic. Um, I really like Doom. I really like Doom 2016. I think that Doom Eternal definitely looked like it added things that were very pivotal updates, but also Doom is Doom. Like I kind of uh didn't I wasn't like overtly with Doom 2016 like a lot of people were. I really enjoyed it. It was not over the moon with it. It's very fun to play for every once in a while thing, but I never was like, oh my god, I gotta play more Doom. But what do you think, Woods?
I got to play Doom at a preview event last year. Loved the shit out of it. It was really good fun. What you'd expect from a Doom game. Just running around, blowing stuff up, shooting demons, all that good stuff. Did I pick it up this year?
Yeah, yeah,
Came out at the wrong time for me, so with Animal Crossing,
yep.
that's all I done with my time.
Yep, and I think that's kind of what it was for me. It was when Animal Crossing came out, everything else was nothing. Like I think that Doom also was a known quantity. Not that Animal Crossing wasn't, but I hadn't played an Animal Crossing since the GameCube. I haven't, I guess, sat down and played an Animal Crossing since GameCube. I did play New Leaf. I just never really got a time to sit down with that. But I think it fell to the thing of being a sequel that was very similar, in my opinion. But again, I will get around to playing it at some point. I'm sure it'll be fun. I'm sure I will love it. It just wasn't, like I said, it wasn't the right time. Um, and then another sequel that I didn't get around to, but I love the original, Neo 2, sitting at an 85 on Metacritic. I adore Neo. Team Ninja put their own flair on the Souls franchise, and I think that they have, outside of From Software, they have done the best with the Souls like, in terms of like actually being a Souls like, and not like, sort of Souls like elements, but I think that they added the action and the difficulty of Ninja Gaiden to the Souls formula, and I think it really paid off. So to hear that Neo 2 was coming out, I think it was a similar thing to Doom Eternal, where it was a known quantity. I never got around to finishing Neo 1. I think Neo was in my top 10 of 2017. So I always am eager to check it out. I haven't got the time this year to check it out, because I've been going through my backlog, and I honestly want to complete, even though I know Neo 2 is a prequel to Neo 1, I do want to complete Neo 1 before I jump into Neo 2, as a game. Do you have any thoughts on Neo itself?
Didn't play the first one, therefore didn't really give the
Mm-hmm.
second one time of day. Saw some cool footage online, some cool gameplay. Um, if I had infinite time, then looks like a game for me. But
Mm-hmm.
nothing on Neo from me.
Right. I think it was another thing. It just fell in line with the wrong place at the wrong time. Again, I also don't know how much it sold, so it might have been a decent success.
Uh,
But
1 million copies as of middle of May.
okay, so not
I,
great, but
I think it's outsold the original Neo.
okay, good, good. That's I think that's probably all they were looking for. And then we get to the big guns. We're starting to get to the big guns, besides some of the stuff we've mentioned before. But Final Fantasy VII Remake at an 87 on Metacritic. Sam, I'm going to ask you first. What have you played Final Fantasy VII Remake, and what do you think of the original Final Fantasy VII? Do you
So
plan on picking this up?
when I was putting this list together, it made me realise how little I've actually played this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through and it's like, oh yeah, that came out this year. I'd love to play that. Yeah, that one looked really cool. Final Fantasy VII Remake probably tops my list of games that I want to play this year but haven't played this year.
Mm-hmm.
Because critically fantastic. Listening and seeing what was going down on Twitter at the time it was out. Certain games that capture that kind of zeitgeist that Twitter, everybody's playing it, everybody's talking about it. This was one of those games.
Mm-hmm.
So I will get round to playing it, I think. It's again just a case of.
Right. So with my journey with Final Fantasy VII Remake, of course, I'm a Square Enix guy. I'm a Kingdom Hearts guy. Like, I'm all in for whatever Tetsuya Nomura does. Unfortunately, comes with all his trials and tribulations. I have to play a rhythm game for Kingdom Hearts to understand the story. I have to play a mobile game to understand the story. I think so. So playing through Final Fantasy VII Remake, I personally was like, I'm not a huge Final Fantasy VII person myself. 9 is my favorite. But I do enjoy the cyberpunk kind of feel of the original Final Fantasy VII, and I like those characters quite a bit. I think that I was very apprehensive starting out when they announced that it was just going to be the Midgar section. But I think what they're trying to do with the overall story, once I completed it, what they're trying to do with the overall story made me have such an appreciation for the game, on where they can take it, because it is much more of like a remake in the style of Resident Evil 2 remake, where you kind of have the themes. They're similar themes, but it's almost like you're having, you're doing what you wanted to do in the first place, like, and that. Yeah, so I think that without spoilers, I think that it definitely tackled not only what Final Fantasy VII Final Fantasy VII could be as a remake. I think it tackles what could be a remake. What is a remake? So I really loved Final Fantasy VII, especially the theories, the big brain theories that we got into that comes with a Tetsuya Nomura headed game. I think that there's so much potential left in there. And then we're going to jump to Streets of Rage 4, Metacritic at an 86. Don't really have a whole lot to say about Streets of Rage. I'm not a huge beat 'em up guy besides Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the video game. So I don't really have a whole lot in that genre. Sam, do you have any thoughts?
The first Streets of Rage games, the original games, are fucking incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as side-scrolling beat 'em ups go, they were up there.
That's what I hear.
Incredible games. Like, even today, go back and play them, like in these collections, Mega Drive collections or whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
They still hold up today. And what I've heard, Streets of Rage 4 is a great modern take on it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's again from what I've heard, because I've not touched them. So
right. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I think the common theme with this is that there's a lot of games, even for being in in all the time. There's a lot of games that have passed people by, either financially or just in terms of time. Trying to get some stuff done and get some stuff organized. I think Doom Eternal. I forget. I honestly forget that it came out this year. I forget that that's like, oh yeah, like a Doom sequel came out this year. I think that falls in line with a lot of what we're saying, is that it's so hard to catch up on everything and also stay on top of the world and all that comes with it. And then we're gonna jet it over to another remake that did it a little bit. Unfortunately, did it a little bit less successfully than both Final Fantasy VII Remake and its predecessor, and that is Resident Evil 7 Remake. Resident Evil 7. I'm sure Fixer would enjoy this Resident Evil 7 remake. But Resident Evil 3 Remake sitting at 84%. I really love Resident Evil. I think that it was a fine game. It was great. I think that if it came out first, between two, between two and it coming out first, I think if it would have come first, it would have been lauded a lot more. But I think because you have the discussion around Resident Evil 2 and what it did to modernize the remake, I think that they kind of ported it out with Resident Evil 3 Remake, and did more of a like, oh, this, we can update this take. And I think it was a good take. I just think a lot of the gameplay elements weren't as strong. I think a lot of the story elements weren't as strong. I think that it was definitely shorter, which is not a bad thing. I don't think that, I personally did, that's not a bad thing for me. I just think that some of the gameplay was not up to snuff with what Resident Evil 2 Remake was, which kind of gives me, now that they announced the Resident Evil 4 Remake, kind of gives me a little bit shudders for what that's going to be.
I missed that. Have they confirmed a Resi 4 remake?
I don't know if they've confirmed. There's definitely been high talks of there being a Resident Evil 4 remake, because everyone around the conversation was gonna like, oh, obviously the next one should be Code Veronica, and I think that Code Veronica should be the next one, honestly, because I think that doesn't hold up as well as something like a Resident Evil 4 does. And I hope they don't go overboard with the remakes. I hope they have a timeline that they can, like, that they can almost do something totally different with Resident Evil 4 Remake and it not do anything that the original does. I hope that they take that route. Honestly, like, I think keeping Resident Evil 4 how it is, because it is such a lauded game, and it's still, I personally think that it's the gameplay wise, it holds up very well. There's things such as the not being able to aim while running. There's like tweaks, but I think overall as a gameplay, it doesn't need to be fiddled around with so much. So I hope that this Resident Evil 4 remake is more of a Resident Evil 4 redo, so we have like a different timeline almost. But we'll see how we think. What do you think of it, Sam?
I've just got a question for you. You mentioned, like, you think if Resi 3 came first, it would have got scores.
Yeah.
More credits.
I think it would have got higher scores. I don't think it would have got as high, honestly.
You think that would have been to the detriment of Resident Evil 2? So Resident Evil 3 goes up, Resident Evil 2 then goes down, or
it's hard too, because they are sequels to each other. You know, like it is like Resident Evil 1 remake, Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake. Like, obviously they couldn't do Resident Evil 3 remake next because because of the numbering scheme. But I think, like, if the lacking of the gameplay was in Resident Evil 2 and then they took Resident Evil 2, like what actual Resident Evil 2 was, and put it into Resident Evil 3, like, had that, like, I think at one point they were one big package, and they're like, okay, let's just put out Resident Evil 2 and then we'll put out Resident Evil 3 the next year. And I think that's what happened, is they went in over their heads and that's why something like the Resident Evil Resistance was included, because we did have the problem there, with I think that a lot of the head popping, obviously the grosser, more horror things. Nemesis didn't feel as scary as Mr. X, which is, when Nemesis is really the poster child for like the what's the name of them? Not the Juggernauts, the Tyrants. In terms of either Mr. X or Nemesis, I think that was a downfall that, didn't, because Nemesis is supposed to be this haunting thing that follows you and Terminator like, and I didn't get that with 3 remake. I got that with 2 remake. So I think that just gameplay wise, it went down a bit. I don't think it was bad by any means. I really enjoyed it. I want to platinum it at some point. Just much like I want to platinum Resident Evil 2 remake. But yeah, I think that it just also was just like, okay, we can get both these out back to back and then we'll be good. And I just think it was rushed out personally, because there is a game in there that's like, okay, like this is like the culmination, this is the next step, but I just don't think it was time out to come out yet.
And that's cool. For me, Resident Evil is a series that I've kind of stepped on as a whole series. I played Resi 1.
Mm-hmm.
I've played bits of Resi 4 at the very beginnings. Yeah, that's a series as a whole that I've slept on. It's not one that's ever really done a lot for me. I'm not really a kind of survival horror. It's not a genre I would go to. Obviously, Last of Us kind of fits into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's me a lot more narrative driven, maybe. I'm not saying kind of Resident Evil about stories, but the focus is more on the strong story
itself. Yeah. Yeah, I just think that it didn't live up to expectations that we had coming off of the second one. So, but yeah, like you said, the survival horror elements can turn a lot of people off too. So I think that's another thing that was its downfall. Is just, I mean, I don't think it was its downfall, I guess, because you would have bought Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 3, if you were a survival horror person, regardless. But then we go to May, which is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition at an 89% on Metacritic. What do you think? I don't have no takes on Xenoblade, really.
I'm a massive Nintendo fan. I like to buy as many of the first party titles as I possibly can. It's kind of hard for me to sit here and say, yeah, I put 120 hours into Persona 5 Royal, but Xenoblade is too long for me. When you've just put 120 hours into Persona 5, I can't then do the same for Xenoblade.
Right.
Again. So maybe in the future, I'm not ruling it out, but it's can't fit 2 massive RPGs in that close to each other.
I think that's the problem with this year too, is like the JRPG list, whether it be backlog or actually coming out this year, I think has been a long list of things that are lasting more than just a couple, like 10-20 hours. Like we're up to like the hundreds of hours point where we're spending on these JRPGs, and if once you play one, you're like burned out for a bit, So yeah, I've always tried to Xenoblade, but I've never really clicked with it. But
it looks interesting. If I find myself really at a loose end, then maybe. But I've got too much. I could fit in 3 games in the time that I could play Xenoblade, which I'm not kind of in or there on. So
yeah, I agree. And then of course we'll go to something we talked about earlier, The Last of Us Part 2 Metacritic score of a 94. This is the winner for me. Like, honestly, far and away, this is the winner for me, Game of the Year wise. Like, we'll get into later discussion about our personal Game of the Years. But I think that it's already been said. We kind of already talked about it. That The Last of Us is something special. It's definitely something that you're either gonna love it or you hate it, and that's fine. But I think what they do with the story, for me personally, was so impactful. Even though it wasn't necessarily a bright story, and I don't think that either of them are. I don't think that either of them are particularly bright stories. So
I'm gonna save all my thoughts for the spoiler cast.
I agree.
Let in that it's a fucking phenomenal game.
And then on the last part, we're just gonna briefly mention Persona 4 Golden on PC out of Vita Island, 87% on Metacritic. I am going to play that at some point. I love Persona. Absolutely need to get around to it. Sam, do you have any thoughts?
Waiting for it to come.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I agree. That's my sentiments on that. I'm gonna say, without a doubt, my sirens are on my end. Sirens. I don't know if you guys can hear the sirens, but the sirens are on my end. I say definitely my personal game of the year is Last of Us Part 2. For things I've mentioned before, I think the story is phenomenal. I think the gameplay is something that they've really outdone themselves. Naughty Dog has, in terms of upping their quality. I think that the stories through the gameplay are awesome. Luckily, I also have some apprehensions about it as well. It's like I said before, with the open world being a little bit too open. But I do think that that's something special. I would say top 3, honestly, for me right now is Last of Us Part 2, and then Animal Crossing, and then Final Fantasy 7 Remake, which may be switched out with Persona 5 Royal once I get further. Maybe even Warzone. Warzone's up there for sure, because I do really enjoy it as a battle royale, and I have had a lot of fun times with it. Resident Evil 3 Remake somewhere in my top 10. Don't know where, honestly. And I think that there's also things that I haven't played yet in the first half of the year that don't really have a opinion on yet. So, Sam, what is your personal goatees?
So top 3 very similar to yours: Last of Us, Animal Crossing, and for me it's Persona 5 Royal, which I think it's at the top. I think Persona 5 Royal is my game of the year.
Yeah.
I think it does the story, the kind of school elements, the free time elements are fantastic. It kind of breaks it up into 2 separate games. Music, I could for hours. It's just something about that game is just damn special. Me, I don't think I will get. I think it's going to be between that and Cyberpunk for my of the year at the end of this year.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a point where it could change. I think that it could change from Last of Us. I just think that for me, what Naughty Dog has done with Last of Us is something that's so special, and I think that the same thing could be said with Final Fantasy VII Remake and what they're trying to do with the narratives there. I think are something interesting and unique. But as we round out this first episode of the Co-op Stop, we are going to do a game. Now, I forgot to ask you before we started this, Sam, but do we have the name generator for our names, or are we gonna have team names, or are we just gonna be Sam and Nick?
Generate 10 names, and then pick a number between 1 and 10 for each other. That will be a team name. I've got my 10 generated. Do you have yours generated?
I'm getting it around. We're getting it. All right. We have, For me, we have the Blue Tolds, the Mean Gibbons, the Tough Raiders, the Proud Admirals, the Defiant Stallions, the Grizzly Blazers, the Angry Chimps, the Glorious Toads, the Creative Chargers, or the Flawless Crusaders. Right now, I'm picking between the Flawless Crusaders and the Defiant Stallions. I think I'm going to pick the Defiant Stallions.
I have to. There's one on there for me that I have to pick. Forget the rest. I've got the Merry Riddles. I've got the Swift Ogres. None of that matters.
Yeah, right.
Genuinely, one of mine has come up as the Calm Phantoms.
The Calm Phantoms? Ooh.
My Persona 5 on Phantom Thieves.
I love it. I love it. So we are the Defiant Stallions and the Calm Phantoms playing for the Co-op Stop trophy that is fictional, but so to explain it, every week we either have a quiz or a 20 questions, video game 20 questions, who am I, and so this week we're going to start off with a quiz, and then next week we have a guest. We're going to do video game 20 questions. So today I have been selected for the quiz, and the game we're playing today, Sam, is are there Switch ports of ... So basically you're telling me if there's a Switch port of this or if there is not a Switch port of this. We're gonna start off with a semi-easy one. Dragon Quest 11. Is there a Switch port of Dragon Quest 11?
Friend, I believe there is a Switch port.
Ding, 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 ding! You got it right. All right. Now this next one's a little bit more hard. I made this quiz a little easy, a little hard, and we're gonna put it middle bit. Alien Isolation. Is there a Switch port of Alien Isolation?
Yes.
Oh, you got the one I thought was gonna stump you a little bit. Is there a Switch port of Fallout 4?
No, there is no.
I made it too easy, Sam. I made it way too easy.
This is my wheelhouse.
Is there a Switch port of Overwatch?
Yes.
All right, you got it.
Doesn't buy it in a shop. It doesn't come with a cartridge, so it comes with a code in a box.
Yeah. Oh, damn it! I should have made this harder. I should have known you were the Switch person. And last but not least, is there a Switch port of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic?
This is the one that's going to trip me up most.
I know that's why I put it in here. That's why I put it in here.
A couple of Star Wars games to Switch. I know there's Star Wars Pinball, Star Wars Jedi Academy, is it? Or something? Don't think there's a KOTOR port.
God damn it, Sam. You got them all right. 10 out of 10. Well, 5 out of 5. I will be sure next week to make, or not next week, but next time I do the quiz to make this shit harder. So, the Calm Phantoms have 5 points on the board. Next week, the Defiant Stallions will be tasked with video game Who Am I, where I can claim some points as well. And as we round out the show, Sam, where can they find you?
I am at Captain Woodsy on Twitter. I stream regularly on twitch.tv/Captain Woodsy. And I write over at jewelshockers.com. I'm a staff writer over there, so you can check out my musings on that website.
And I, of course, am Shaka McPain, Nick Blaine, Shaka McPain himself. I am Shaka McPain at Shaka McPain on Twitter. You can find me at twitch.tv/Shaka McPain, and of course, YouTube, youtube.com/Shaka McPain, where you're probably seeing this very podcast. Well, Sam, I'm just gonna ask, how do you think it went?
Been a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a pilot. There's things we're going to iron out. There's things we're going to work on, but good fun. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think we've got something going down. I think we've got something in the conversation. I think that we definitely have room for improvement. I think that there's a few things that I personally need to work on with some stuff. But I think that overall we're getting something started here. We're getting something started with your one-stop co-op shop. I don't know if that's copyrighted or somewhere. But the Co-op Stop podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, take care.